Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Career Conversations with Felecia H. That's me, with my special guest, Shemeka Rodgers.
Hello.
So listen, this is the second episode, and it is power. You thought last week was fire. This week is, you can't put this fire out. Like, this is about to be amazing. So stick around to the end. This young lady that is on the screen with me right now is my first cousin. Now, you may be saying, Felecia, but the girl last week. Yep. She was my first cousin too. We are rocking it out, and we are Black girls who rock, and we are all first cousins, and Shemeka's father and my mother, brother and sister. So this is a real relationship. Once again, this is not someone that I just met. This is my day one, my sister, my cousin, like her baby. We really didn't know how I was going to be related, so I call her my niece cousin, because we're sisters and we're cousins and we're friends, so whatever. Shemeka Rodgers, welcome to my podcast. I'm so honored to have you.
Thank you so much, Felecia. I am probably even more honored to be here for your second podcast. I know we have had a lot of conversations over the years about you and this podcast, and really wanting to do something to really help people kind of propel themselves forward. So I am so excited to be here and be part of your journey.
Now, you're welcome. I wish your little baby, my little niece cousin, could be on here, but she would probably run the whole show. So
steal the show. Yeah.
She would. So listen, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay.
We're going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes. But if we go over, it's okay, because I know that you are about to drop some major fire bombs, career advice. So the people should stick around. All right.
You should stick around into the end.
All right.
I would agree.
Yeah. So Shemeka, I have 7 questions for you. The same 7 questions that I will ask every guest that comes onto my show. But the great thing about it is they're the same 7 questions, but we're going to get a different story each time. So I'm excited. All right. So first question. So tell me, or tell my guest or my viewers, I don't even know, this podcast is so new, I don't even know what to call you, but
tell the people.
Tell the people about you. Tell them about your story. And when I say your story, like, where are you from, where you live now, your educational background, your family, your dreams. Talk about it.
Ooh, that's a lot. That is a lot for one question, but that's okay. So I am Shemeka Rodgers, born and raised in the South in Memphis, Tennessee.
Woo!
And, I know, right? But I moved from Memphis in 1999. I think at the time that my husband and I decided to move, we were in the middle of planning a wedding. We weren't even married yet. Our wedding was going to be in May. We moved in March. But we moved to Ohio. And when I think back on kind of that moment and us saying, you know what, let's just do it. Right. Our family and friends thought we were completely crazy to leave the safety net and just the comfort of our family and our home. Right. But in our mind, we wanted to do something that we felt was just going to be something different and something we needed. We were looking for an adventure. Right. And we did it afraid. Right. We did it not knowing. So we moved to Ohio. We lived there for 14 years. And I have also had the, I guess I would say, luxury or privilege to live in Ohio. We lived there for 14 years. We lived in Oklahoma for 4 years. We lived in West Virginia for 4 years. And now we are living in Pennsylvania.
You know what? Being that you just told everyone where all the different places that you've lived, I think we're going to name this podcast the Relocation Package.
Oh,
that's
okay.
it.
Okay, there has been some relocations.
All right, so continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry. No, you're fine. So anyway, when I think about just kind of, I guess, our story and the things that we have been willing to do, it always amazes me when I tell people where I've lived, and they're like, oh my gosh, you moved all those places? Yeah, we did, right? And we did it because we wanted something different. Each place we went to actually gave us an opportunity to build on what we wanted and what we were trying to do. So,
Right.
you know, anyway, I am a mother. I have two kids. I have a 10-year-old son who's soon to be 11. I have
Mm-hmm.
a daughter who just turned 4, who Felicia mentioned is her cousin niece, who keeps us both very busy.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I have two kids. My husband and I, we've been married for, I think it would be 23 years in April.
23
So
years. Congratulations.
23
That's
years. Thank you
amazing.
so much. Thank you so much. I'm
Right.
so fortunate to have a husband who's very supportive of
Mm-hmm.
me in general, but also of me and
Yeah.
my career goals. So that has been amazing too. Anyway, so I am in the electric utility industry and I have been
Okay.
for about 18 years. Um, I will tell you, getting to the electric industry wasn't, um, it didn't happen like there was no grand plan.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very transparent and tell you before then, when I got out of high school, I went to college. I stopped going to college. I kind of did a few things not knowing what I wanted to do. And one day in the middle of all of that, I was like, you know, you need to just settle down and figure out what you want to do. And
Yeah.
until you figure that out, don't enroll in another school.
And you know what? I think that's key what you just said, because a lot of people think when they graduate from high school or when they graduate from college that they are supposed to know what they're going to do, and that's not always the case, right?
It's not. I mean, I thought I wanted to be an accountant. Okay. So when
Me
I
too.
first went to college, that was my major. And I really admired my uncles who were accountants. And I'm like, ooh, I can do that. I want to do that. Right. And that's what
Yeah.
I thought I wanted until I got into my accounting classes and realized that that's not what that's not what I wanted.
First of all, let's just say, so Shemeka and I are 5 years apart, but we went to college to major in the same thing, not knowing that we were going to college to major in the same thing. And we both
Hmm.
decided that
For the
accounting was
same
not for
reasons. And
that
that is
account.
funny.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't even know that
funny.
until
Yeah,
right now that
yeah,
you went to school to major in accounting and you ended up
yeah.
majoring in social work. That
In
is
social
so.
work. And I went because I admired both of our uncles who were
Yep.
accountants. And I thought, oh, it runs in our blood. I'm going to be an accountant. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. I quickly realized that they
Yeah,
were the money guys, right? They
yeah,
they got it. They understood figures and money and like that was just that was their path. That was their thing, and that was
yeah,
not mine. And that's
yeah,
okay. So you know, I
yeah.
had to really come to the realization that what I thought was going to be my path was not it, and
Hmm.
that it was okay for me just to pause and try to figure myself out, right?
Yeah,
And I did that. So I
yeah.
did eventually go back to college, and I
Hmm.
ended up getting my bachelor's degree in business administration. And then after that, I went back to school again in Ohio to Franklin University, and I got my MBA in with the focus in leadership because I
Awesome.
knew that leadership was something that was always going to be something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So let's go back a little bit and talk about your different moves and why
Okay.
you moved. Okay. Because I think a lot of people, especially when they're young, they're afraid to take a risk to move to another state, to move to another city, in order to progress their career. So talk about that.
You know, looking back, I didn't know at the time, but when I think about 1999, me telling my mom, hey, we're moving to Ohio. And let me just go back and tell you how we ended up moving to Ohio. So, my
Okay.
husband's best friend had recently moved to Ohio from Memphis, and we went to visit
Hmm.
him and his wife Labor Day of 1998. When I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a cute town. It was a small town. It was so,
Hmm.
everybody was super friendly. It was so cute. I was like, we should move here. And guess what?
You
We
did.
decided to move there. Like
Yeah.
within less than 6 months, we decided to move. Looking back at that decision now, I realize how much really courage it takes for you to decide,
It does.
especially on a whim, without having a job. Because I didn't have a job yet. My husband did, but I didn't have a job yet. But I was confident the job market was different back then. You know, I'm like, I can find a job. But looking at it now, I realized that it really was kind of a risk. And it took a lot of courage to say, you know what, we're going to do it. And let's just go. We'll figure it out when we get there. Right.
Yeah. So after Ohio, all the other
Hmm.
moves were related to your career.
They were. So I was working in the utility industry. I was, you know, I had been in a supervisor role, kind of in a supervisor position,
Hmm.
and I knew that I wanted to get into management. But in 2007, I
Yeah.
moved into my first supervisor position.
Mm-hmm.
After being there for about 2.5 years, my manager retired. And I was like, I can completely do it. I think I'm ready. And I applied for the job. I prepared like it was the last thing I was ever going to prepare for. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I have got to get my resume together. At the time, I was thinking to myself, well, okay, I think I can do pretty good with my own resume, but it has to be great. So I'm going to make an investment and have a resume company do my resume. And it
Mm-hmm.
was amazing. It was great. I was ready when I got into the interview. And guess what? I did
What?
not get the job. I
What?
didn't get the job. Okay. I had a
What?
second interview. It
Mm-hmm.
was between me and one other person, and I did not
Mm-hmm.
get the job.
What in
I
the?
was like, what in the heck is going on? But
Mm-hmm.
I think the pivotal moment though was when my director at the time called to tell me I didn't get the job. He was like, and he kind of explained why I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
selected. And I said, okay, well, if you have time in the next week, can we set up time for us to talk and for me to get some feedback from you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I know that when this job comes open again, I want this job.
Right.
No matter what location is at, this is the job that I know I want next.
Right. So let's put a pin right there. You
Okay.
just said two really important things. The first thing you said was you prepared your butt off and you still didn't get the job. Now,
Mm-hmm.
let me ask you, how much pre-work of networking for the job did you do before you interviewed? I know you prepared, but
Yeah.
did you do a lot of the pre-networking before you interviewed?
Okay. So probably not as much as I should have. Okay.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
I felt like I had been making connections, meeting people, really trying to develop relationships with them and, not developing relationships to see, just so they can get to know me, I can get to know them, but also to see if I can be a resource for them, right? Is
Mm,
there something I can help you with,
right.
as you're doing your day-to-day job and vice
Right.
versa, right? So I had did some of that, but I would say that I wasn't at the point where I'm like, oh yeah, that I had really like knocked it out the park.
Yeah, yeah. So the second thing you said was when you didn't get the job, you went
Mm-hmm.
back to that hiring manager, to that person who interviewed you, and you asked, "May I have feedback?"
Mm-hmm.
That is so important, and people do not understand. They just, if they don't get a position, then they let that just kind of take them down. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and not they just let that deflate them, so they don't even try again. How important is asking for feedback from managers and mentors as you move through your career?
You should always be asking for feedback.
Yeah.
And I know that it takes a lot and that it can be hard to self reflect and to hear the feedback. But if you
Yeah.
want to grow and develop, and I did, I'm like, well,
Hmm.
then I need to hear the feedback. And then,
Right.
hearing the feedback is just the first part. Like, that's the easy part.
Right.
That's the easy part. The hard
Hmm.
part comes with you really taking time to self reflect.
Hmm.
You know yourself better than anyone, right? So
Yeah.
internalizing that and really seeing if it is some validity to kind of what you were told, and then really making a plan that's going to help you to put some things in place to change perceptions or to get more experience or
Hmm.
whatever the case is with the feedback you receive. But you have got to apply the feedback.
Right. Absolutely. So, would you mind sharing with the people what you do now, like what your role is? I know you're in a director, manager, supervisor. Let me tell it to my friend. My
You
cousin is the
always promote
president.
me, so I love it.
My cousin is the president of the company, and da da da. Right. But if you could just tell them your role, how many people you are responsible for, and listen, people. I don't mean to call you people. Anyway, listen. I'm asking Shemeka to share this with you because the information that she is giving you is valuable. She has seen people come and go. She has been the interviewer. Now, she's talked about this job that she didn't get, but she has been the interviewer for several years now. And so she's seen it all. So listen to the information that she's giving you because these are gems that she's dropping. Okay. So talk about your role and just kind of what you see on a day in and day out basis.
Okay, so can I just backtrack and say one thing since you said what you just said? So
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2009 I did not get the job, but in
Mm-hmm.
2013 I did.
Mm,
In
mm,
2013 I
mm,
did.
mm, mm.
So and let me just say this because this just goes to the exact thing about taking the feedback. It was funny because when I was in the interview with the same person that interviewed me back in 2009, and one of the things he was like, remember when you called me and asked me for feedback? I was like, yeah. I was like, I already know he's going with this. I was like, yes, I remember. He was like, what
Mhm.
did I tell you? And when I answered that question, here's what I did. I said, you told me that I needed to get more experience outside of me being like in the customer service group. And then
Mm,
I told him, and here's what I did. Here's what I've
mhm,
done. I laid it all out to him. The positions I've had since then, the things I've gotten involved in, just from my own personal and professional development, from
mhm,
a company perspective, right, with organizations and,
mhm,
just kind of getting involved in things to add value back that help me learn too. So I laid all of it out. You told me this, here's what I've done. You told me this,
mhm,
here's what I've done. And when I
mhm.
got done with that, he just sat there and was like, okay,
Right,
okay,
right. You have to do the work.
you have to do the work.
You have to do the work. You can have a million mentors. You can get all the feedback you want, but if you just take it and you get mad about it and you don't do anything with it, you're going to end up being in the same position now that you were in then. So you have to do the work and you have to take the feedback, digest it, and be ready to go. All right, Shemeka, all of that sounds great. You have given us some great advice, but tell everyone what you do now and just what you see on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So today I manage two different customer contact centers. And the size of those, they're about equal. So right now I have about maybe a team of about 115 total
Hmm.
in my current role. In previous roles, I've done a very similar position where I've had up to 234 people that reported
Wow.
directly under me. I'm 110. So it kind of has varied throughout my career. But I would say that
Hmm.
on the low end, it's been about 110 people. On the high end, about 234.
Okay.
Um, so as you can imagine, when you're in a contact center environment, you have a lot of people. There are a lot of personalities that you have to learn
Yeah.
and and manage, and it's fun, but it can be interesting.
Yeah. I can imagine you've seen some great interviews
Hmm.
and some not so great interviews.
Oh yeah,
Tell me what those great interviews look like, just a little bit, and then
yeah.
tell me what those not so great interviews look like to you as a manager.
So over the years, when I think about just not even doing interviews at the supervisor level, I would say doing interviews at the manager level for looking for leaders,
Hmm.
because it's different at each level. But when I think back on some of the great interviews, it was people who I could really tell have prepared themselves to
Yeah.
come and get the job, right? And what
Yeah.
I mean by that is that they know they want it, and their purpose in their interview was to show up and show me
Right.
exactly how they would fit into the role, into the team to help us be successful, and like why I could not pass them up.
Right.
Period.
Right. Okay, so Mika, tell us, what does a not so great interview look like? Just, I know it can be ugly. Just tell us about it.
I have had so many varying degrees of interviews
Okay.
that just weren't great. Some of
Right.
them could have been something as simple as the person didn't know how to take their experience
Hmm.
and turn that experience into like leadership, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think people struggle with that is because they don't see themselves, because they haven't ever been in a leadership role.
Right.
And that is a big mistake I think people make, is thinking that they
Hmm.
have to have had a leadership title to
Right.
be to give me examples of leadership,
Right.
right? That people don't realize that you can use examples from church, from your
Hmm.
organizations, from your things you've done in just in the community. I mean, there are a lot of examples that they can pull from, but sometimes people just don't know how to do that or how to relate what they do every day to just kind of answering some of those questions from a leadership perspective.
Yeah.
Now, there have
Yeah.
also been examples where I have sat there and wondered to myself, Did you know you had an interview today?
Oh
Because
my
I mean,
God, I can imagine.
I am not being funny. I am being so serious right now. Sometimes, I think this probably happens more so when you have a person who is interviewing within the company they already work for.
So they're
I think
comfortable.
they're comfortable. They come
Mm-hmm.
in because maybe they may know one of the hiring managers or maybe somebody else on the interview panel. And when they come in, they
Mm-hmm.
bring that comfort with them into the interview.
Yeah.
And it is
We,
literally sometimes to their detriment because they don't give the detail they need to, because they may say, oh, well, you know about that example,
mm-hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
as you're taking notes in your interviews and you're just kind of using that as your base level for everybody you're interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
the person next to you that didn't work at the company, they're coming in there knocking it out the park,
Right.
right?
Right.
So when you're looking at at your interviews and trying to figure out who had a great interview, who should you send to the next level or to the next step of the process, sometimes you could be shortchanging yourself because you're not giving your all when you're in the interview. So I tell everybody, when you go into an interview, always act like you know nobody at the table. You don't know them.
Nobody.
They
You
don't know
don't know
you.
them. They don't know you.
So show up as your best self,
Show up as your best self
give them
and get the job.
details,
Give
and
them
go and
details
get the job, right?
and get the job. Stop playing.
Get the job.
Get the job.
Come get. I laugh
You
a lot
better.
of times because I'm like, I hope somebody comes in here in these interviews, at least one of them, and they come here and they come get the job.
Come get the job.
Come get the job. It's here.
Stop
Like
acting like you don't.
I am ready to give it to somebody. Come get it.
And come get the job. And you know that you need the job. So don't go in all cocky and don't do the necessary things that you need to do to prepare for the interview. Do those things. Do the work and go get the job.
Do
All
the
right.
work.
Do the work. I'm getting mad. Let me
Okay,
calm
wait.
down.
And one thing that I hear people say a lot
Yeah.
is that, well, I hadn't interviewed in so long. So when I hear that, my mind, and I know that I have to, everybody's not Shemeka, everybody's not Felecia, everybody does things
Right.
different. But in my mind,
Right.
I think to myself, then you are the exact person that
Right.
needs to do extra
Right.
to make sure you're preparing.
That's right. That's right.
And when and I know that when you haven't interviewed in so long, you're probably not thinking about it, and don't know where to start sometimes. But I'm going to tell you, there's one word that I'm going to tell you that is like the best place to start. Google.
Google. Google it.
Google. Interview
Google
questions, simple resumes. Just like start with Google. That's it.
Start with Google.
Don't make it hard. Don't make it hard. Do not make it hard.
Great advice. Great advice. You're so awesome. That's why I love you.
Oh my God. Somebody gave me all this advice, so I'm giving it back.
You're welcome. Okay, Shemeka. So you just told us what great looks like, and you just told us what not so great looks like. And you have done all the things to progress your career, right? But let's go back a little bit and tell us what it was like when you first entered the workforce. Were you prepared? What were you like as an employee? Talk about that, because I feel like there are so many people, they're just getting into the workforce, and their behaviors, their characteristics, they're just not where they need to be, but they need to understand that those things can change. Your mindset could change. Those behaviors, those characteristics, all those things can change. Where you start doesn't have to be where you finish. So talk about when you first entered the workforce.
Okay. I am sitting here laughing like you are putting me on the spot right now. Like I got to give all my innermost secrets.
The people need to know.
It's okay. It's okay.
We're trying to help women all around the world.
I know. Like this is just what it was and how I was, and you can change. Okay, I changed.
Yeah.
But when I think about graduating high school and you are trying to work, and when I first was going to college, I used to work at a country club. I worked at a country club. And that was like one of the most fun jobs I had. I love that job. But I didn't stay there long. It was kind of seasonal. I was in college. It was right near my college or whatever. But outside of that job, when I was in the workforce back then, I wasn't prepared. I really didn't understand the need for me at that point to get a job, right?
Right.
And, have a strong work ethic
Right.
and be dependable and what it meant to be dependable, to your coworker, not just to the company, but like for your coworkers and your peers who
Right.
were having to pick up the slack when you weren't there and all those things. I was like,
Yeah.
look, can I
I'm
get off
not
on
coming.
Friday? Look, can I get off on Friday? No, okay, then I'm calling off. Or you know
Right.
what? I'm fine. I'll find another job, right? I
Right.
mean, that is kind of the mentality I had back then. And I'll never forget one day my mom was like, look, you can't just quit jobs because you get mad and you can't get off on the day you want to get off.
Right.
And I was like, but I
Yeah.
can't. She's like, no, you need to stop it. Like, that's ridiculous. You
Right.
need to stop it.
Right.
And in that moment, I was like, okay, well, maybe she's right. I need to get it together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually did. I eventually did get it together. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I mean, that was
Right.
many moons. That was many, many moons ago.
Many, many
Okay,
moons.
many, many moons ago. But
Right.
it still is how I was, and
Right.
I see that sometimes now, even in young people. I mean, I was like 18, 19 years old back then.
Yeah.
But I see the same thing in young people now. When I'm like people in the workplace, they're
Mm-hmm.
interviewing, not, and I'm not saying all of them. I see that in
Right.
people just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I am just grateful that I was kind of going through those things when I was 18 and 19.
Right. As opposed
Not
to in
not
your
not
20s,
later.
in your
Right,
30s.
right,
Right. Right.
right.
Because there is a such thing as a work reputation. Like
Oh yeah.
if you're one of those people and you are working a job for 6 months, then you quit and then you get mad at the manager and you quit that job. Well, guess what? The
Mm-hmm.
next job you go to, you're going to have to write a reference down. They're going to say, okay, where was the last place you worked? And how easy is it for someone to pick up the phone to say, what was that person like when they worked
Mm-hmm.
for you? So that is your reputation. And you want
It
to make
is.
sure, right? If that's how you are living your life right now, from job to job to job, and you're calling in and you're not really, worried about your coworkers and how much slack they're going to have to pick
Yeah.
up if you're not there, if that's how you're living your life, this is the area where you need to stop, because you are developing a professional reputation. And,
Yeah.
the worse that it gets, the harder it is to turn it around. Would you agree, Mika?
I would agree, and and one other thing that we don't think about either when you think about kind of being in that mindset where
Yeah.
I'll just quit, I'm going to leave, and you really don't care enough about it to maybe because you just don't know what you don't know, or
Right.
or you just hadn't had the aha moment yet, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, but when you think about when like when I did get to the point that I was serious,
Mm-hmm.
and you do your resume, when HR and the hiring manager sees that, they're going to wonder, like, why have you had so many jobs?
Right. Right.
What is the story behind that? So, you may get called on the carpet for that when you're in your interview. So you need to be prepared to be honest and transparent and just kind of talk through that. I
Right.
had to, right?
Yeah.
But I
Right.
knew, though, when I got the next thing, I needed to show up differently.
Right.
My mindset had to change, right? I had to set different expectations for myself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I had to go in and I had to choose my attitude, right? I had to choose the way I showed up, the way I responded to things that happened at work. Like, I had to make a conscious decision that
Yep.
you are going to have a different attitude going forward.
Right.
Period.
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 Period. You just period. Can somebody bring me a fire extinguisher, because it's on fire in here? Oh my gosh, that was so good. That was so good. All right, gosh. Okay, so moving on. We got to get to the end. I just want to keep talking and keep talking, but
I
we got to
know.
get to
Stay
the end.
focused.
We got to get to stay focused. All right. So, what would you say has been what characteristic has been that one characteristic that has propelled you throughout your career? That has,
Ooh.
what's that characteristic?
Okay, so I really think it's two things, and I'll try to be
Okay.
brief when I talk about it.
Okay.
So one of the things I think is being coachable.
Ooh.
Is being coachable. That goes back to just kind of asking for feedback, being receptive to the feedback, and being open to having, I don't care if it's your manager, your boss's boss, your peer, somebody who reports to you,
Yeah.
telling you or giving you feedback and just kind of some things that you can do different. You have to be open to it, right? You have to be open
Right.
to it, and you have to be willing to change.
Yeah. I agree.
You really do. The other thing I would say for me has been developing relationships.
Mm.
I'm not going to call it networking. I'm going to say it's developing relationships and
Yeah.
developing and fostering those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was at a networking event one day at my previous college, and the person who was speaking, it was a networking event talking about like how to network.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who was speaking said, it's not about who you know. It's about who knows you and who knows your capabilities.
Mm.
But they're only going to know that by you fostering this relationship that's not about what you can get from them,
Right.
right? It's kind of a two-way give and take. Like you both are making deposits into this relationship, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes time. It takes time to develop that. So when I heard that, I'm like, ooh, okay, all
Yeah.
right. So I spend a lot of time developing relationships with people at all different levels in the organization,
Yeah.
up to the top, down to the bottom, right?
Woo.
Because at the end of the day, you never know, who you can help
Right.
as they are on their journey and trying to grow in their career. You
Right.
never know who can help you with whatever,
Right.
whether it be a project or if you just need somebody to listen to and kind of be a sounding board for you, be a mentor, whatever the case is. You never know how you can impact somebody else's life, and you never know who's going to be your boss one day.
You
You never
now
know.
that you never know who's gonna be your boss. Now
Right.
that's
So
true.
developing relationships for me and just me knowing people at different parts of my career and being able to call on someone or get some advice from someone, like those have both been things that kind of go together that have helped me in my career.
Awesome. I hope you all are
Yeah.
listening. I hope you are listening.
And you know what though? And it just may be me. My parents always said, look, don't be afraid to ask for something. A closed mouth can't be
Right.
fed, is what my mom always said. So
Say it one more
I am,
time.
look, a closed mouth cannot be fed. So I am not the person that's going to call my boss and say, hey, do you mind if I call your boss to see if I can get a meeting with them? I'm the person who's just going to call them. Now I'm going to I'll tell my boss, hey, I've reached out to such and such, or I'm going to,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm comfortable just like doing that. And that's what I've done.
Right.
And you will be surprised how much people appreciate somebody saying, hey, do you mind if we just have a conversation? Right.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
when I've gotten to those conversations, I've been prepared for the conversation. You
That's a
can't
whole
go
nother
into
conversation.
you can't go into the senior vice president's office for a meet and greet or for like a 30-minute conversation. You in there and you don't know what you want to talk about.
That's another podcast, Shemeka.
Okay, I know. I'm sorry. Okay.
but that leads me into my next question. The next question of just give our viewers just a couple of things that you did to professionally develop yourself. Like, what are a couple of things that you did for professional development? Because professional development is super important when you know in the beginning that you want to progress your career, that you don't want to be in the same position 2 years from now. So what are a couple of things that you did to progress your career on the professional development side?
I mean, I think that I think one of the biggest things that I did for myself was I took ownership of it.
Mm.
I used to think back in the day, like, okay, if I want to, it's my boss's job to make sure I'm developed.
Right.
Now, that's not true. It's your job to make sure you get developed
Right.
because there are a lot of things that you can do outside of work, right, on your own. That's going to give you some things to put in your tool belt. That's going to give you new competencies, new skills. So I realized that I had to take ownership of it. Now,
Right.
I also was very verbal with. I've always been very verbal with my leaders and people I reported to about, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I want to do. Can you give me some insight? Do you think I'm on the right path? Like, I always try to make sure that I have conversations throughout the year with my boss about what I'm doing. Like, what do you think I need to be working on? Right.
Yeah.
And again, using that feedback to help me plan out my year.
Right.
Right. So if my boss said, hey, you need to go and learn more about the company, about the business, then I'm going to go and schedule some meetings and see if I can get involved in some, maybe shadowing somebody, or maybe is there something I can do on this project with you so I can help get some experience or whatever the case is. Right. So I think for me, it really is just taking ownership of it. And just reaching out, having conversations and trying to put that in practice. And it goes back to Felecia, with me saying about developing relationships, because when you have those relationships, then you can call people to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Can you give me some feedback? Or
Right.
is there anything you have going on? Right. So it all kind of goes together.
And let's put a pin in that, because when you built the relationship, especially when you built the relationship with people that are levels above you, then when those people are in rooms that you're not in,
Mm.
and the question comes up, we have this position that's available, who do you think will be good for this position, who do you think will be a good fit for this position, then your name is in rooms that you aren't even in.
Ooh.
Then that person that you've built a relationship with, they're able to take your name into rooms that you can't get in yourself. So the
This is true.
relationship is key. It's key.
Yeah,
It's,
this is true.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Look at I'm like, this is true. This is true.
This is
This is
true.
all true.
Okay, so we are almost to the end.
Okay.
But I would love for you to give our viewers a piece of advice, for those people who are just entering the workforce and those people who feel stuck. So it's a
Ooh.
two-parter. Just entering the workforce and those people who have been there a couple of years and they're starting to
Okay.
feel stuck. What advice would you
Okay.
give?
So for someone, I think that's just entering the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a little different. It's been so long since I've done that. It's been weird, but but I think looking back at it now,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is going to be just no giving yourself some grace,
Yeah.
okay? Because when I finally did get into like when I felt like I was an adult in the workplace, right, and
Right.
I was doing the
Mm-hmm.
right things for the right reasons and all those
Right.
things,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, how do I learn, right? So how do I learn? I don't know everything, right?
Right.
I don't know half the stuff I think I should know at this point. So I think
Mm.
just giving yourself some grace, taking the time to learn, starting to develop relationships. It's never too early to do that,
Never too
right?
early.
Get
Right.
involved in things.
Right.
If your company has employee resource groups or things like that, like get involved. They have organizations that you can get involved with, going to meetings and lunch and learns, like all of those things. Immerse
Right.
yourself in those things because it's going to help you start developing relationships. It's going to help you to learn more about the company and
Right.
just help you try to figure out what do you want your next thing to be? What's your next move?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What about for those people who are feeling stuck or starting to feel stuck?
There was a point in when I was early kind of in the utility industry that I kind of was feeling, I don't know if it was stuck. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I just felt like, okay, Shemeka, how much longer do you want to do what you're doing right now?
Ooh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, I wasn't complaining about it because again, I
Mm-hmm.
had already shifted my mindset. But one day I said to myself, if you want something different, you got to do something different. And that moment of like reflection and that little aha moment for me, that night
Yeah.
I went and enrolled back in school, and that's how I got back in college. Because I
Wow.
was like, I had been watching the job board. I was looking to see what kind of skills they wanted, what kind of jobs were out there. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get something different if I
Wow.
don't do something different. And my something different at the time was going back to school.
Wow.
And you know what? And before I completed my bachelor's degree, I moved into supervision.
Wow.
Right around the time I completed my MBA, I got another promotion, and it's like opportunities opened up because I had this behind me
Right.
that had prepared me to be a strong candidate for these roles. So
Wow.
when you're stuck, the only thing that can get you unstuck is you.
Can you
And
just
I
say it
realized that.
one
I
more
mean, that was
time?
it.
One more
When you
time
are
for the
when
people
you
in the
are
back.
feeling stuck, when you are feeling stuck, the only person that can get you unstuck is you.
Is you.
That may be risky because that may mean you may have to go and find another job.
Mm.
That may mean you may have to go and sit back and really reflect on feedback you received about things you need to change that you haven't changed yet.
Wow.
It's going to require some work,
It is going to require some
one
work,
way or the other.
but you
But
can do it.
you can do it, and I'll leave you with this one quote that one of my mentors, who I value very dearly, used to always say. She used to always say, change happens when the cost of staying the same is greater than the cost of change.
One more time.
Change happens when the cost of staying the same is greater than the cost of change. For a lot of people, that's true. So you have to figure out, have you had enough? And if
Mm.
so, what am I doing next? And let's do it.
There's nothing else for me to say. You
That's it.
have just, you said it all.
That's it.
Shameka, my love, my sister, my cousin, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
gracing my podcast today. The information that you have provided is fire. All
Oh,
the
thank you,
viewers, if
Felecia.
you're watching this, this has been amazing. I have always admired you. I love you like with my entire heart. You and your little family. I love y'all. But but I'm super proud of you and thank you for all of the advice that you have given for free to my viewers here. Um, and I just want to say to everyone, replay this video as many times as you need to. Share this video. This video may not be for you, but I guarantee that there is someone in your life who needs to hear this message. Someone in your life who is just entering the workforce. Someone in your life who may be feeling stuck where they are in their career. Share this video with them, okay? So, my name is Felecia H. Eaton. This is my special guest, Shemeka Rodgers, and you have just watched Career Conversations with Felecia Eaton. And like,
Thank
share,
you.
subscribe, all those things, right? Mika, thank you. I love
Everything. Thank you
you.
so much. I appreciate you so much.
I love you.
I appreciate you. I love you too. I appreciate you.
Yay.
And
All right.
I love being a part of what you're doing. So it's such a kind of full circle moment to see you in this space and sharing things the way you are. So I'm pretty excited for you and proud of you.
Awesome. Thank you
I'm not
so
gonna
much.
get sappy. Bye.
Okay, don't get sappy. Whatever you do, people, whatever you do, get up, get moving, and do something to change your life. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.